The 7 Hertz 5. Let's talk about it. This is a loaner unit sent to me by a fellow YouTube reviewer, and let's start talking about this IEM. It has 5 dynamic drivers. It costs $150. And let's get into the build quality and comfort of this IEM first. I mean, the shell of this IEM is okay. It's a little bit thick at the base. It doesn't have a wing. It is a kind of almost a round-ish IEM, almost like a dynamic driver kind of a thing. The shell is cool. If you can hit it at the right light, it does kind of show all the drivers in it. You can kind of see it right about there. And you know, its nozzle is a little bit large. It does have that nice lip, and you know, overall it's fairly comfortable, but it's a little bit slidey in my ear, and it's I don't know, it doesn't really feel like there's any airflow when it's in there, so that's kind of a problem a little bit. But it's not a bad experience overall, but I don't consider it to be the most comfortable, and it is a little bit large overall. The faceplate, you know, it's pretty nice. It's kind of a metal faceplate, black semi-translucent shell. It's a beautiful IEM shell, and I mean, I don't have any problems with it, but it's not the most comfortable shell out there, and it's okay. Look, the case is nice. I mean, it has like a zipper case with this kind of interesting, fleshy, almost feeling, a nice 7 Hertz logo on it. Has a, you know, kind of a strings that are part of that same material. The cable itself is nice. It's basically the same cable that was on the 7 Hertz Sonus that is a $60 IEM. So that's, you know, something to note. If you just want the cable, you could get that IEM probably for around $45 on sale. How does this IEM sound? This IEM is what I call an extreme V. It has a lot of upper energy, and it's something where it hits some of the bad points for me, which I personally don't like. It's not something that I absolutely hate, but it's for me and for my collection. If I were to own this would be an extreme specialist that I wouldn't really want to listen to very often for a couple of reasons. Let's look at some graphs, and maybe that can help explain why I have that opinion of this IEM that I do. So let's look at the graph. Now, this right here is normalized at 500. So that means that right around 500, these two match up. And you can tell there's a lot of that mid-bass and lower mid-range bloat. Usually I like my bass to end right at around 200, but this kind of keeps going on. What this does is it creates kind of a scooped upper mid-range, and it sounds a little bit interesting. It has a lot of energy right around the presence region, right at around, you know, 2.53K. And again, another peak right around 5K, where I prefer a dip. It also has a lot of energy through these regions. And this is extremely hard to graph because it doesn't really have a AK peak, which is neither here nor there. But I just wanted to be clear about the graph for those extreme graph sniffers out there. So there is a ton of peaky energy up through here. I wanted to show you this at, you know, normalized, I guess, at 800. You can even see it's a little bit more energy. And next one we'll look at, I want to show you the Sonus. Now the Sonus, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's not bad. It's nice and neutral. It's almost like the Hexa in a lot of ways, but it's kind of a cheaper version of the Hexa with a nice cable and stuff. It's not bad. It's a little bit more smooth and neutral to me. I think for people looking for a neutral sound, the Sonus would be a way better IEM to go after because of that. And it has that same cable you could get, and it's a lot cheaper. It's like, you know, again, it's about a third of the price of the 5 IEM right now. Another one to look at is the Aurora. Now, I reviewed the Aurora on channel recently. I mean, the Aurora has pretty good presence, upper mids kind of region, but it doesn't really have a bass shelf, and it has a few peaks. It's one of those IEMs that's not bad, but it's not really great, and it's not really something I would fully recommend. One thing that this did remind me of was the Hydro. Now the Hydro's cheaper. You can probably get the Hydro, I think, for around $100. And it has dip switches where you can adjust the bass. So we're going to kind of ignore the bass through here because I think it's not ideal, but it's okay. What you'll notice here is that the Hydro diverts right around 400 and will become a lot more flat and even. And then it will dip down here and kind of become more even. Whereas like the 5 will have this, this 5K peak, this this almost 2.5K peak, and a little bit more energy than the Hydro, and that's something to watch out for. I think personally, if I would recommend somebody that wanted a slight V-shaped sounding signature, the Hydro to me is a lot better set. It's cheaper. It comes with a nice KZ cable, or at least it can, and I think that's probably the better set to go if you want something a little bit fun with a little bit of bass and has a little bit more even kilter to upper mids. Okay, the next one I'm going to look at is the Sound Notes Twins. I try to show you guys all the ones that I have graphed from the same company, just so you can kind of see what other IEMs the company has. They have the Critical 02, which to me is a really nice neutral dynamic driver. There's also the Sound Note 02. I mean, comfort of the 5 is better. It does have a nicer cable, but it's also like 6 times the cost. And so that's kind of something to note, that like the 5 is kind of one of those extreme V sets that I don't think is for everybody. I do think it might be for some people. I have another IM I'll show you here in a moment. These pair, the Fur Audio E12 and E10. Now you look at these are all kind of this crazy IEM shape. They all are really about the same until about 1.5K, or at least similar. And my point with all these is that these IEMs are almost, almost 1500, 1600. If you're after a V-shaped set and you like something that's an engaging and enveloping tune, and you don't want everything to be neutral, rather than getting the E12 or the E10, you might go after the 5. I think the 5, if that's what you're after, this is the market for people that want a high energy, high upper mids, kind of scooped, upper mids region, this upper treble region, a little bit of this peaky. I think the 5s might give you that style of IEM for cheap and reasonable price. Another one to look at is the Symphony. Now, I did not like the Symphony, but I think the 5 is better than the Symphony, but the Symphony is also $60. And other people that really like the Symphony, I know some people I know from HeadFi, and some of my channel reviewers were like, wow, why didn't you like the Symphony? Just so much energy here. And I think this is something to kind of consider. Like if we normalize this around 300, you can just tell how much more energy is there. It just sounded crazy to me, but some people like that tonality, and that's fine. Last one I wanted to look at is, if you're willing to spend a little bit more money and you're after kind of a more calm, neutral, chill, V-shaped set, I kind of would go for the EPZ 530. Now this is a lot more expensive, probably gonna be around $400, but this to me is like just a little bit less bass, a little bit more scooped out upper mids, has this nice kind of gradual less presence region, a little bit of a dip from 5 to 6K, nice extended treble. I think the EPZ 530, if you want to look for something that's a V-shaped set that's a little bit more slight and not as extreme, I think that's a really good way to go. Last one I wanted to show you guys something. I mean, not everything has to be perfect or right along the line. 1 or 2 faults from that line is okay, because they kind of give it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of fun, like something different. Hey, different bass shelf, different upper air. It kind of helps you recognize what regions that you're sensitive to and what you like. But I mean, for cheaper, I kind of would probably go with the Afu Explorer. I think that's probably the better set, at least for me and for my preference. And so I wanted to give you guys a few options, some from the brand and another one from a brand at this price point, which I think is a benchmark and would be the better way to go than the 7Hz 5. So the 7Hz 5, do I recommend this IEM? Not really. I mean, It's expensive for what it is. I think you can find IEMs a lot cheaper that I think are objectively, at least my subjective opinion is that it's better. It has fun, engaging bass, but everything else is average at best, if not even poor. It has good imaging. Things don't sound terrible in it, but it does sound a little bit thin and a little bit piercing at certain times. Its bass quality is good, but not fantastic. That extra sub bass and kind of that extra like 4 to 6K region just makes it sound a little bit too bloated for me. I mean, its soundstage and its technicalities aren't terrible, but and maybe almost okay for the price. Like if you really want a V-shaped signature and you really like this set, it might be worth it. But for me, for my recommendation, it gets a no recommendation at this time. A lot of people talk about a house sound, and some IEMs do share commonalities to each other. And you'll notice some tuning trends of certain companies that they have almost a style, and some philosophies are the same. But you do have to be really careful. If you can't read a graph, you kind of got to find reviewers that can read graphs and talk to you about IEMs in actual words that make sense to you. This IEM has an extreme amount of bass and treble regions, and it makes it an exciting listen, but it can be annoying after a little bit of time. It's not something where the entire spectrum of sound that's audible sounds good. Parts of it sound pronounced, and that's kind of fun, but it's not in my region of what I call correct, but more of a fun set. I think it's a fun set, but I think there's other IEMs from the brand that use the same cable that its build quality might be better for you to get similar packaging and what I consider a more neutral sound at a cheaper price. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. Not that this IEM is bad, because most IEMs are not, but that this IEM in itself is a little bit too extreme for me. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions about this IEM or anything else, please leave them in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a great day. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?